um, they're just staring at. I remember they're kind of like with their heads tilted up, just adoring this home. And then I remember the voice said, "Do you want this?" And I looked at it and I was like, "Oh, home. It's nice." And I said, "Hmm, it's nice, but I don't have to have something that big. I don't have to have a big house." And then I said, "But this is what I want." And I pointed at the family. I didn't know that I had told him the desire of my heart, because he doesn't know the desire of your heart. I feel he is a studier of people, right? He studies people, his, the other demons that he networks with, those fallen angels, they study people and they do their research and they find out about you, you know, and this is how they find out what your desires are. But I had actually spoke and told him what mine was. I didn't necessarily say I wanted it from him, but I still told him, you see. Nothing that he offered me mattered to me more than family. And throughout my life, I always remembered that I told him, and it seemed like he always tried to attack me in that area and always made me feel like you'll never have a husband, you'll never have a home, never, 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 never. He tried to make me feel defeated in that area, because plus he doesn't want you to have that husband and that wife, and those children. He doesn't want that, because that's something God wants. So why would he want that? He doesn't want, he wants to destroy, the traditional family. So, second, my hand is hurt. All right. So, anyway, so I told him without knowing, right? Now, I kind of, just like shook myself out of that, eventually. Anyway, so we started to get rid. So I think that was, again, like I say, there were those moments where he tried to act like he was my friend, that spirit, right? But he could not hide that evil feeling, that presence. I mean, I don't care what it looks like, if it's evil, you can feel it, right? So, unless you're just so deceived, unless you're just so far gone, you've just been so deceived so long, you can't feel it. But I'm telling you, it was evil. I could feel it. So, anyway, a little bit after that, I decided to take a bath instead of a shower. So, before I get into the bathtub, I turned on the water, and you know how you turn it on and you want to feel, you want the temperature to be just right, right? And so I had turned on like the cold water. And I remember when I put my hand in the water to feel it, see if it wasn't too cold, I it's kind of like I just like froze, not because of the water, but this I was just like frozen, like zoned out, I guess you could say. And so I'm kind of like zoned out. My hand is in this water, and I'm just like I can feel it, and I'm just like this, just frozen, like zoned out, just like so. When I say I can feel it, I mean it was so cold. It was the coldest thing that you can't even imagine, right? It was so cold that it felt like the moment one drop of water touched my skin, my hand should have just broken in a million pieces, right? Like it should have just shattered because it was that cold. It should have instantly froze and shattered. Now, although I could feel how cold it was, it didn't hurt me, but I was allowed to feel the extreme coldness. So the next thing I remember, I turned on the hot water. So when I turned on the hot water, the same thing. I put my hand in the water, the running water, and I could feel how hot it was. But this water was hotter than anything that I've ever felt. I knew that it was the hottest that it could be. It was on a whole different level. The water was so hot that it should have melted my hand away. From the moment I put my hand under this water, it should have melted it as if I stuck my hand in lava. And although I could feel how hot it was, it did not hurt me, but I could feel how hot it was. Now, I remember I got into the tub and I was sitting there. And while I am sitting there, something told me I felt a different presence. It was not the same as the other presence I had been feeling before, the other one that tried to trick me. This was a totally different feeling, like just pureness, right? So when I sat in the tub, and again, I didn't know anything about the Holy Spirit, anything like that, but when I sat in the tub, I knew, I felt, or I knew, or I was encouraged to, I knew I was supposed to look at my hands. So I looked at my hands. And when I looked at my hands, I noticed there was something in the center of my hands, and it looked, like, it was a little dot, probably the size of my mole, and it kind of started coming up out of the skin, and it was blood, but it was so dark, it was like really dark, and it was just like a dot of blood about the size of this, and my mole, and it came up, and I saw it on both of my hands, in the center of both of my hands. Again, I was not dreaming, no drugs, no alcohol, wide awake. So when I looked at I had my hands out like this in front of me, both of them, just like this. I got closer to my hands to see, and when I looked at my hands, the closer I brought them to me, the center of my hand began to open up. The flesh began to open, and before you knew it, there was a hole inside of my hand. I could literally see from one side to the other side. There were holes in the palms of both of my hands. And eventually they were probably about like this big around, from what I remember. But, I could literally see, like I'm looking through a peephole. I could see the flesh, the meat. I could see everything inside of my hand. I could see, all the levels, whatever that is, like the meat inside, the vein, everything. I could see straight through both hands. So anyway, sorry, I don't have a thing to hold my phone with. Anyway, so I could see inside both of my hands, right? These holes. Now, blood began to drip out, and started going, well, my hands were like this, both stretched out, okay? So the blood started running upwards this way, right? Okay. While I'm looking at this, I noticed, I looked at my feet, like I knew to look at my feet. I look at my feet and I have holes. The same thing. You see the little dot of blood. It starts the skin, the hole starts to open gradually, and you can see right through them. So, and the thing about it is, like, it all happened at the same time, and I could see everything because I had my hands stretched out. So I'm sitting flat in the tub. My hands and feet are both stretched out in front of me, so I can see clearly, both hands, both feet, with the drops of blood at the same time. So at the same time, the holes were opening up in my hand. The same time they were opening up in my feet. Everything was happening like at the same exact time. When the blood was running up this way, because like I say, I had my hands like this, so it was running up. It was running upwards, right? So same thing with my feet. I had my feet like this, and the blood was running up. But when it got to, let's say, it ran up, and when it got to about here, same thing on my legs, right before it got to the fold, the blood fell inward like this, and it fell into the water. Okay, so the blood was coming, okay, so dripping down my foot, coming upwards towards me. The blood on my arms was coming upwards. Okay, when it got halfway, it fell into the tub. And the same thing with when it got halfway up my legs, the blood fell inward and fell into the tub. But it all happened exactly at the same time. Everything was even, like, okay. So when the blood fell into the water, when the blood fell into the water, it was like I was instantly sitting in a tub full of blood. Now, it only went up to like about my waist because I hadn't even filled it up all the way. But I was sitting in blood. And I remember I was just staring at what was happening for a moment. And then I just like kind of just shook myself out of it. But this was different. It wasn't like the other spirit I could feel that was evil. This was different. I know now that God was showing me, He was preparing me for what was going to happen later that night. But I know that He was, now I know, I've learned a lot throughout the years, since this has happened. God has revealed more to me about this experience. But I know that He was showing me that He had died for me. That's what He was showing me when He allowed me to see those marks on my body. He was showing me that He had been crucified for me, that He had died for me. And like I said, He was preparing me for what was going to happen later that night and just, throughout my life. So later that night, I went to the warehouse. I got dressed, we left, and I went to the warehouse, where, like I say, where my stepdad worked, and me and my mother, we went to help him clean. So when we got to the warehouse, when we got to the warehouse, you know, we came in like where their kitchen is, right? So the break room. So I was gonna clean the break room, and I guess they were gonna go do whatever. Um, I remember my mom and my stepdad had sat down at one of the tables in the break room. And honestly, that should have been weird enough for me because they didn't really, unfortunately, communicate like that. Um, at least I didn't see them do things like that together. But anyway, so they were sitting at this table, and I remember hearing this trumpet sound, just so random, like out the blue. They're sitting there. I'm about to, find out what do I need to do in here? Do I need to clean up this kitchen? What do you want me to do? And all of a sudden, I hear doo 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 doo, and I'm like, what is happening here? And so I'm like looking over at my mom and my stepdad, and they're sitting at this table, and I'm thinking, you don't hear that? And it's just, I'm like, what is that about, And then I'm like, where have I heard something about this before? And like I said, I had went to church, here and, actually all the time, but I wasn't really paying attention, I was this kid living my life, and but I remembered little pieces here and there, and then I was like, wait a minute, doesn't the Bible talk about some trumpet sound and like, are we supposed to be going somewhere or whatever? And and I'm just like trying to think quick because it's making no sense to me. And then all of a sudden, I hear someone in the side of my ear here whispering to me, clear as day, clear as day. And it sounded like a drill sergeant, like rushing me. And it was that same evil presence, and but again was trying to fool me, and I hear in my ear, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna go? Are you gonna stay? Come on, come on. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And so I'm like, God, where am I going? And I'm just like, where am I going? And I'm just doing like this, and I don't hear, I mean, I don't see who's talking to me, but I can hear them. And I'm just like, oh my God, where am I going? What do I do? What? I'm looking over my mom and my stepdad, and I'm like, oh my God, these people don't hear this. And then this thing's just like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And then, so I hear the thun, 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 and then I don't want to miss, if I'm supposed to go, So I remember I I reached out for my mother, and when I went to grab her, it was like I saw my hand go through her body, like if she was like a ghost or something, like she wasn't there, but I could see her, but I couldn't grab her, and I just, you know, and then I leaped up, I jumped up, and of course I didn't go anywhere. And I remember, landing back on my feet, and I I I remember I opened my hand, and I had my mother's keychain in my hand, and it was carved out of wood, and it said her name, Mary, right? And so I was like, man, that was weird. I was like, what is happening, And and they weren't there. I looked over and they weren't sitting at that table anymore, right? So um so then I started picking up things, and I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? And just try to shake it off, and you just want to keep your sanity, until you figure this thing out, right? So I'm sitting, no, I'm walking around, and so I start to pick up things off the table. I'm like just gathering things to put in the trash and get ready to wash the dishes. So I remember there was a coffee cup on the table, and it had just a little bit of coffee in it, and there was a cigarette butt in it. And then I remember I picked it up, and I guess I was just being nosy or whatever, but I leaned in to look inside the cup, and I was just like, and then the closer I got to the cup, it was like all of a sudden, I felt like I was watching a movie, you know, and I saw like just all this chaos in the world, and I saw, you know, how, I just saw like all these military, you know, airplanes and, people with guns, they're like the military. And it just looked like war, basically. But I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to even watching movies like that. And it just wasn't something I was concerned about or really just exposed to, I don't know. It just wasn't part of my life. But I saw all these things that I wasn't used to seeing. And I saw a lot of like people living on the streets, and I saw like homeless people, and I know we've always had the poor, but it was different, and again, I wasn't exposed to it, I mean, we used to go feed like the homeless, my mother, she'd make sandwiches and things like that, maybe like Christmas and stuff like that, and we just go up to random people, but I still wasn't really exposed to it like on that level, that what I saw, okay? I saw just like devastation, in different parts of the world, I guess like earthquakes and just all kind of things, you know what I mean? And I heard, a voice say to me, the more that you see these things, it was telling me like, people want you to think these things are normal. But this is not normal. This was not, what I intended. This is not supposed to be what we consider normal life. And the more that you see an increase of these things, the more you see an increase of these things, he was, and I didn't know really, like I say, anything about, like I say, rapture, the calling away, whatever you want to refer to it as. But he was saying the more you see an increase of these things, like the more it's like time, I guess, that, Jesus would be coming, right? I don't remember exactly what he said, but that's what it was basically about. And like I said, this voice was different. And this voice was more here, but the other voice was more in my ear, and it was rushed. It rushed me, and it had an evil presence. But this one was a different presence. And I knew the difference, even when the other one would try to trick me and portray itself as good. I knew the difference. So, then I was told to drink it. Remember, there were some old coffee and cigarette butt in there. But anyway, I think I drank it. But anyway, so I was told to drink this. So I drank it, but it was kind of like, again, like I was like in this kind of froze state, like this zoned out state, I guess. And I just was like, so then afterwards, again, I would shake myself out these things, and I just kind of like, and so then I remember I was like, did I just drink that? So I know now, but not then, that I was not technically drinking the coffee cup, what was in the coffee cup, but I was drinking in the vision, you see. Later in life, I found things where, and I can't quote it right now. I have to look back. It could be in Revelations, but I believe someone was told to eat a scroll or something, or a page of a book or something like that. And I guess it was, and I think it tasted bitter to them, but I think it was so that they could remember that. And I think that's what it was with me. Okay. So, again, remember, these are not dreams. I was wide awake when all these things happened. Okay. So, after that happened, after I drank that vision, I think I probably threw the cup away or whatever, or washed it. But anyway, so I got ready to start washing the dishes. When I started to wash the dishes, then all of a sudden the phone rings. Now, it was probably around midnight, a little close to midnight, after midnight, somewhere around there. It was late. So the phone on the wall began to ring. Now, the phone was like, okay, so let's just say I'm in the kitchen and I'm looking, the kitchen, I mean, the sink and everything would be here, if I was turned sideways. The phone would, let's say the phone was directly in front of me up top. There was an ice box next to it, and there was like an Ozarka machine underneath the phone. Phone, Ozarka machine, ice box. There was a door here and a door here. And then coming towards this way were a lot of offices, okay, and down these halls and everything, right? And the sink here. So anyway, so I'm here facing this way, about washing the dishes. Phone rings, I turn this way. I see the phone light up, right? On the wall, one of the lines lit up. So I kind of like walk over there towards that phone, and I'm just kind of like looking up at it, and I don't even know why I walked to it. I have no idea. I mean, who's calling me there? I don't even know the phone number. And so anyway, so I go, and I don't know, it's just like it wouldn't stop ringing. So I picked it up. And I don't know why I picked it up. Because what am I going to say? Thank you for calling this company. It's like 11 at night, 11, 12 o'clock, and I'm pretty sure I wasn't supposed to be touching the phone. But anyway, I did. So I picked up the phone, and I was kind of nervous about picking it up because I shouldn't have been picking it up. So I remember I was just like, hello? Then all of a sudden, there's like this static, and it's also like, and then I heard someone call my name. And it was that same voice that I heard when I was in my bedroom that called my name. And the voice was just like, April, April, April. And I'm like, hello? And then it just hangs up. So I'm like, oh my God, who called? I'm like, I don't even know this phone number. So I was thinking, it's just like you try to, sorry, my hands hurt me so bad. I didn't know it was going to be an hour video. So anyway, so I was just like you try to make sense of these things when they're happening to you. So I was like, did my daughter's father call me here? But I was like, but I never gave him this phone number. I don't even know the phone number, How did he get this phone number? And, back then, there was no like star 69 for me to call back and be like, who's this? It was about to come out, but there wasn't, right? And there was no caller ID, nothing like that. So I just like went back to washing the dishes. So then the phone rings again. And I'm like, what is going on here? So I go there again, and I'm standing in front of it. And it's like it's demanding to be picked up basically because it won't stop ringing, right? So I go and then I pick up the phone again for the second time now, right? And so I'm like, hello? April. 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 And I'm like, Marshall, is that you? Is that you, Marshall? Because I'm thinking it's, my daughter's dad. And again, how would he know this phone number? But anyway, so then the phone goes dead again. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not picking up the phone again. So I'll go back, wash the dishes, and phone rings again. And I'm like, I'm not picking up this telephone. So I refused to pick it up at that time, right? So I thought. And I walk up to the phone because, like I say, it was just demanding to be picked up. And then, I noticed, one line, it had, it was like those old school phones where it has like all those lines that can light up, right? When somebody's on a different line. Boom, 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 boom. Each line started lining. Every light lit up, boom, 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 one behind the next. And when every line would light up, you could literally hear a separate ring. Now, mind you, let's say there was 10 lines, right? You could hear each line, each ring, or I could hear each ring separately, but like they flew right. They were like right behind the next. I could hear where they started, even though they continually rung at one time. Anyway, so it was so loud. And I mean, it was just like, it was so loud. It started to literally hurt my head, right? And I'm just like, what is happening here? What's happening? Why is this happening? What's going on? I'm thinking this to myself. And all of a sudden, I see, okay, so remember, there's the phone up here, like directly in front of me. There's the phone, there's the Ozarka machine here, and there's the icebox here. On the side here, okay, let's just use, this is where the phone is, okay? There's a door here on the side. That door leads to a huge warehouse. So you're coming from that warehouse to come in. So this door here pops open. So I see my stepfather, he's coming out that door, but walking towards my direction. So he's coming towards me, right? So I see my stepfather coming towards me. I'm standing here looking at the phone here. He comes out this door, walking. Well, not walking towards me, but he's walking straight. Okay, I'll just do this. He's walking straight towards my direction, but he's gonna like pass me up, right? So anyway, so I'm staring at the phone. I'm holding my ears. I look over and I see my stepdad coming out this door, and I'm holding both my ears and I'm just looking at him like, you don't hear this? And he's pushing like a dust mop. He's pushing a dust mop, right? But he's moving kind of fast and kind of weird. Like he's moving like he's kind of like shaking like this. And he's moving the dust mop. And he's walking fast, And and when he looks over to me, I look at him and he just goes, oh my God. I mean, that looks evil when I'm doing it now. You should have seen it, okay? He had this, it looked like my stepfather, but he had the same exact big black eyes that demon had that looked like me when I was at my house. That was the only difference with him, that it looked like him, but it had those big black eyes that had fully black eyes, no life in them, none. And so I'm like, I'm holding my ear because I don't want to hear the phone, and I'm turning and looking at him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? Because I was like, why doesn't he hear this? And I saw his eyes, I was like, what's happening? So while I'm freaking out and I'm doing this, and all of a sudden I hear that voice on this side. It was like an invisible person whispering in my ear. It wasn't coming from my head. It was like right here on the side of me. And it was that drill sergeant voice again, and that just evil presence. And the voice was saying, he said, they're gonna come in here and just I'm doing this right. I'm looking all around like, oh my god, oh my god. And then this voice is like on the side of me whispering here, and he's like, they're gonna find you dead, and they're gonna think somebody came in here and killed you. And I'm hearing dead, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so at this point, I'm like losing it, right? Because I just heard him say they're gonna find me dead, and I'm like, oh my god, we didn't take this to another level now. So I'm just like, and I'm looking over here and here and here, like, oh my god. And I'm so next thing you know, I'm looking here, like wondering, why is my stepdad not hearing this? Like you don't hear 50 phones going off. So next thing you know, he's coming this way, and then he ends up coming from this way. So he crisscrosses himself, and I'm looking and I'm going, I see him walk this way, and then all of a sudden the other door pops open. He comes out there, and he crisscrosses his path, and I'm like, like, how is it possible there's two of him? And then this thing is still telling me I'm going to die. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm just like, what's happening? Sorry, that's my katana again on my computer. But anyway, so then when he goes, he comes this way, then he goes this way. And he passes himself. The other one had the same big black eyes, but he had like, I don't know, something else. Let's just say he had a vacuum. Anyway, so when I'm witnessing him crisscross his own path and I'm freaking out, boom, the door behind me busts open, and there is a third thing, demon, whatever, that looks like my stepfather. So now he's coming from behind me, coming from in front of me, and coming from the side of me. Now this one, mind you, had a knife in his hand. And I'm telling you, it was just like the movies. The tip of that knife was shining. It was like I could see it up close and personal. And he was walking with it was kind of like pointed downwards, but I could see the tip of it. And he's walking fast, just like kind of like walking like this, like he's about to just cut me to pieces. And, the thing just said they're going to find me dead. And he's walking like this, just those big old black eyes. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. When I tell you, I just, I did, the only words that came out my mouth that whole time, because I was seeing this and I was crying, I was hysterical, okay? But the only thing that came out of my mouth when I finally said something, when I tell you, I screamed with everything in me, everything that I am made of, every inch of my being. I meant it, and I screamed.